Well, hello, and welcome to episode 261 of Drink the Movies. I'm Brian here, as always, with Michaela. And Michaela, another year in the books, another Oscar night, and another Best Picture winner. Congratulations, one battle after another.
Indeed. Uh, Man, this won a lot of things, which was interesting to see because I feel like it was paired up against Sinners for like best casting, a lot of best actor nominations, best supporting actor and actress nominations. Um, Lots of really good stuff here. Long film, long film. And here at Drink the Movies, we watch all the nominated films. So when we see one that's almost 3 hours long, we get real scared or worried or weary. That might be the right word. But I gotta say, we saw this way before it got any of the Oscar buzz that it ended up getting, and that was time well spent.
That's true. Yeah, we went and saw it about opening week time, and I was thinking back on it because we saw this in the theater, and obviously we watched a lot of movies in the lead up to the Oscars and all the Oscar films, and then just other films that we watch for the podcast and just for our personal movie watching. So there's been a lot of movies between one battle after another, and I was thinking in my head, I was like, man, it's been like almost a year since we saw one battle after another in the movie theater, but it turns out that was just this past September, so that's not that great to lose track of that much time in our lives. But yeah, we watched it then. I think we both had a chance to rewatch it at home prior to the Oscars. So we're going to be going off of that knowledge and what an Oscar night it had. So we're going to hit on all of that stuff. And then, of course, we're going to take a trip to Fanny's at the Academy Museum, which is where we go to pay honor to our Best Picture winner cocktails because they do it the best. And we like to try to hold ourselves to the high standards that Fanny's has set. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and grab some Mezcal. We're going to grab some Bloody Mary syrup, which is something we've talked about here on the podcast before, but we're going to do it anyways for science. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back to mix up this week's drink.
So, Brian, I don't know if our current audience knows the story of Fanny's, but they should. Fanny's is the restaurant slash bar that sits inside the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, where where they hold the Oscars, right? And we went there. We were lucky enough to go there, now a couple of years ago, almost maybe a year and a half ago. Gosh, time is flying. But it was a really great time. And Fanny's is one of our favorite places because every Oscar season they do a plethora of cocktails for the Best Picture nominations, and we have a lot of love for it because they were so nice. We were just starting out, young kids trying to make it in the podcast world, and we sent them an email. In 2021, I want to say, and asked
Yeah,
them
I think so. Yeah.
for a recipe for their Coda cocktail, which looks amazing. If you go back and see it, it's the most absolutely beautiful thing I've ever seen still in my life. And they were so nice. And they let us like in on all the recipe, like how to make it. And they were so kind. Um, and that was so awesome. So we do Fanny's cocktails as many as we can, and we always cover the best picture.
Absolutely, yeah. We always try to recreate their Best Picture award-winning cocktail there as close as we can. Sometimes we're able to get a little bit closer than others. Sometimes they're using ingredients that are not local to us, or they're using some ingredients that are, like specific to LA. So things that we either can't get or have to order, and we just don't have enough time to kind of do that here in our week-to-week thing. But we try to get as close as we can, and that is exactly what we did this time with their one battle after another cocktail, which is basically a little riff on Michelada, which is a drink that I do not particularly care for. I don't really love those flavors. We've talked about Bloody Marys and things like that in some lobby bars and the likes. So my feelings are out there on this. So when I saw this, oh man, one battle after another. Is that the best picture? Maybe, maybe not. But there were some other cocktails maybe I was pulling for a little bit more, to be quite honest. But we're gonna mix this one up, and it is going to be a good time. So according to the recipe card here from Fanny's, we have the following ingredients. So we've got some mezcal. They're using one from La Tierra de Acra, which I believe is like an LA based like mezcal or I don't I don't know what mezcal making places are, but like a distillery there, like local to the LA area. So that one, if you can't find that one, you could use kind of a different mezcal. Whatever you're able to find is probably going to be okay in this because the primary player here is the beer and the Bloody Mary syrup. So you're going to need some mezcal. You're going to need some Cochi Americano, which is an Italian aperitif. It's like dry vermouth kind of, but I think it has a little bit of addition of like quinine and like a little bit of like more citrus kind of flavors forward there. So it's a little bit different, but if you can't find the Kochi, go ahead and just use some white vermouth. It's going to get you in the same ballpark, more or less. Some Bloody Mary syrup, more on that here in a second. Peroni and some lime. You'll want a little bit of salt for your rim as well. So, Michaela, we're looking at this cocktail ingredients. Like I said, it's a Michelada thing. You spent a lot of years in Texas. I feel like you are the Michelada expert of the two of us.
Be the expert, but I don't think that I'm a fan. I've had, I mean, that's always a thing where Sunday mornings at like after church brunch or whatever, you go to your favorite Mexican place and they're like, "Do you want a michelada?" And that's like a thing. I never understood it. But it's kind of a riff on a Bloody Mary. Too, right? It's got Bloody Mary mix. This is mezcal instead of vodka. So I don't know. I was kind of in between because I was trying to be open-minded with this one. Yeah, I was trying to
Yeah,
be open-minded, but
there you go.
typically, uh, yeah, yeah, it's not my thing typically. So both of us were really trying to like give it a good shot, right?
Give it a good
Jumping
shot.
in.
Yeah. Give it a good shot
Yep.
of mezcal.
Good thing is
Start
this
there,
has
calm
mezcal,
nerves.
which yeah, yeah, I definitely was excited about the mezcal piece because I love me a mezcal. It's very smoky, kind of tequila-ish. Um, So yeah, so the way you could do this is the first thing we should talk about is a Bloody Mary syrup. What we did, we took some Bloody Mary mix, or at least this is what I did. Bloody Mary mix, put it on the stove, and let it reduce. Tried to, not to burn it so it wouldn't have like a burnt tomato taste to it,
Mhm.
but like kept it kind of simmering until it reduced a little bit, and then added some of that into our drink.
Yeah, I think if you're going to make this, and would go out on a limb, somewhere like Fanny's is probably making that syrup from scratch. They're probably getting, some tomatoes and then like your Bloody Mary seasonings, which is like salt and pepper and like celery salt, I think goes in there, maybe some like Worcestershire
Hmm.
sauce, kind of thing. And, actually just like cooking that down in the effort to save a little bit of time and not being familiar that much with Bloody Marys. What I did too was, yeah, I just got some Charleston Bloody Mary mix. That one's a little bit spicier. So I thought that I would probably like the flavor components of that a little bit better. I reduced it by about half to, kind of make more of this syrup as opposed to like the liquid that you're going to be filling your Bloody Mary glass up with. And that is what I used. So into a shaker tin is what I put is 1 ounce of the mezcal. I put a quarter of an ounce of the Kochi Americano. I put roughly a quarter of an ounce of that Bloody Mary syrup. It's kind of like a heaping bar spoon, give or take. And then I put in the juice from about a half of a lime, so about a half an ounce of lime in there. I shook that up with some ice. I wanted to get a little bit of that ice melt to dilute it to thin out that Bloody Mary syrup just a little bit. And then I strained that into a glass, put in some ice cubes, and topped it with some Peroni into a glass that I had rimmed with a little bit of salt, and I had grated just some of the lime zest in there. So I had a little bit of like lime and salt there on the rim, and then I could sip and enjoy this. This was not a drink that was ever going to be something that I liked that much. I will say that the flavors there were really good. So if you are a fan of Bloody Marys, if you're a fan of Micheladas, if you're a fan of tomato juice and those kinds of things, this is probably slamming and good on you. But it wasn't my favorite, but I can definitely appreciate like the artistry of like making
Mm.
like a super high end Michelada.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, look, the color's definitely there. That was the first thing I noticed. And I do think, I don't know, the smokiness of the mezcal is really going to be something. So, if you like mezcal, you probably could do this with tequila. I've done it with tequila. I didn't love it, but I really like mezcal. If you love it, if you love a michelada or michelada, you should give it a shot. I have a really good friend Jeff who tried this. I sent him the recipe, and he was like, "This looks like the most amazing thing ever." Texas people, give this a shot. Go ask for one.
Texas people give it a shot. That's right. One battle after another is my journey with tomato-based drinks here as we're going. But yeah, I want to give a special shout out to Fanny's, a place that we love, a place Michaela mentioned that we have visited and hope to get back to very, very soon so we can run through their whole gamut of Oscar drinks. If you want, up on their Instagram, with which I believe is just at Fanny's LA, I think, is pictures of all of their best picture cocktails. You should, give them a look, see which ones you want to try to recreate because they look spectacular. And this year's were really, really good. So check those out. But for now, let's go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be right back to chat about this week's film, One Battle After Another.
The Oscar goes to One Battle After Another.
Spoiler warning for One Battle After Another. If you've not yet seen this, we're going to talk all about it. It won Best Picture, so it's somebody thought it was real good and worth their time. We're going to talk about a lot of things on this, but I want to do the spoiler warnings because there's a lot, and if you want to watch it before, you should press pause on this. Go make yourself a Michelada if you want. Go watch this film. We'll talk to you in 3 hours, and then we'll talk about everything, one battle after another.
We'll talk about all the things. Yeah, if you haven't had a chance to watch it yet, it did just come out this past year. Obviously, it was directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, and it stars a lot of people that we'll, kind of talk about as we're, just talking about some of the aspects of the movie here. This won the Best Picture at the 98th Academy Awards. Speaking of Academy Awards, it was nominated for 13 of those. The ones that did not win are Best Actor for Leonardo DiCaprio, Best Supporting Actor for Benicio del Toro, Best Supporting Actress for Teyana Taylor, Best Cinematography, Best Score, Best Sound, and Best Production Design. Those were the ones that didn't win, so 7 of those, but it did win 6, so that's pretty good. It won Editing, it won the first ever Casting Oscar, it won Adapted Screenplay, Best Supporting Actor for Sean Penn, Best Director for Paul Thomas Anderson, and Best Picture of them all. So, yeah, Best Picture of the year. So I mentioned Michaela. We saw this like way back, all the way back in September, which feels like I don't like literally like looking back. I feel like it was like 2 years ago that we went to the movie theater and saw this. It is wild that it didn't come out until September to me, but that's on a side note. That's on a side note. This was based off of a
Right.
book called Vineland. So if you saw that it won Best Adapted Screenplay and you're like, I want to read One Battle After Another, you can't because that's not the name of the book. The name of the book is Vineland.
Vineland, yes. Which actually I'm really excited to go and check out now that I've rewatched the film a couple of times. I definitely think that man, it definitely should. I don't know, the adapted screenplay. I don't know how they could create this story in a movie from a book, but they did
Mhm.
it and they did it really well. So that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the book itself came out in 1990, and if you look at One Battle After Another through the lens of 2025, the year in which the film came out, it feels very timely to this year. So it'd be interesting to see like what liberties were being taken, what kind of like slants on the story were being taken through the modern lens. But apparently, this was a story that Paul Thomas Anderson has liked for a long time and has always kind of wanted to adapt, but was fearful of doing so. He thought that his kind of love for the source material was going to get in his way of being able to tell, compelling or accurate depiction of it. So that's pretty cool that it finally came to pass. But yeah, definitely something that I'm interested in reading. Vineland by Thomas Pynchon. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the movie. I don't want to go beat for beat here because there are a lot of beats to this movie. So we'll open with the opening beat, which is which is really like an opening like monologue or like preface or like I don't know, the prologue. I don't know what it is, but it's like the first hour of the movie is just like this very intense, very well edited like action montage of all of this stuff that's happening for like the first 16 years of these people's lives.
Yeah, I feel like, and t tell me I'm wrong. That's fine. But I feel like if we took train spotting, like the first 5 or 10 minutes of train spotting, okay, and
Mhm.
we made that an hour and added some explosions, we would get something similar to what I felt and experienced watching the first hour of One Battle After Another, because it is very fast paced. The editing in it is really, it has to be really smart because it has to tell this very seemingly very complicated story of these
Mhm.
two people who are part of the French 75, which is this very apparently well organized underground movement. And one of them's like a bomb expert. One of them's just kind of nuts. They end up kind of falling in love. They're trying to do all these things and heists and free a bunch of immigrants and things like that. But in the midst of it, there's this storyline that has to continue, and in the background, it's like "Viva la Revolucion," and there's like stuff flying and explosions and I don't know, assault rifles when you're 8 months pregnant, shooting into a field. It's amazing. I mean, but you don't get to come down. I mean, really, that's kind of the feeling is you're like, okay, I'm with you, and then like you calm down for like a little bit, and then you're right back to it, which is kind of how I felt the first 5 or 10 minutes I saw Train Spotting, where I was like, I don't know what's happening, but my heart's pounding, and I'm like, whoa! And it just thrusts you into this universe of,
Hmm.
um, you know, undergroundness of in multiple levels, right? Because the French 75 is I guess they're considered a terrorist group, and then there's like the Christmas Christian right wing underground Saint Nick sect of the world that is also apparently real organized and terrifying. Probably more terrifying than the bombers, to be honest. But
That's true. That's true. Yeah, we get introduced to all those people. I will say that like the opening bit, it's not like presented in like a monologue type fashion. You're just like seeing this action unfold on screen. So, you're kind of not necessarily at a loss, but it feels like you're playing like catch up through the first like
mhm,
hour of the movie, like trying to like figure out like who all of these people are, like what their place is, within this organization, within kind of the acts that they're carrying out within the enemies that they're making and all that. And it feels like by the time you catch up with Leonardo DiCaprio's character, who's playing the character by the name of Pat Calhoun, who later goes by Bob Ferguson later on in the film, by the time you catch up with him, like 16 years down the road, like high sitting on the couch, you're like, that is exactly what I need to be doing right now. So I can like soak in like what just happened because it is so crazy. And the fact that it works, I think, is, really a monument to the editing, which, won the Academy Award for there in that sense. So I love that. I love kind of the setup for this movie and being a 2.5 hour movie, because of the pacing, because of the editing, it never felt like long in the tooth. Like it always felt like you were ready to see what happened next. It never really felt to me, at least, maybe until the very end that, there was any room to leave anything on the editing floor. It seemed like all of these pieces needed to be in place to tell this story, which is, very vast, but very personal at the same time.
yeah, for sure. I don't know. This story is really interesting and compelling because you have these two people that kind of seem to come together over this common goal of I don't know, freedom. I'm not even really sure what it all was. There were some things that were really cool, and then I don't know, it was kind of muddled. But then we run into kind of the nemesis, which is Colonel or Captain Lockjaw, played by Sean Penn. And I gotta say, the very first scene, Teyana Taylor shows up. She's Perfidia Beverly Hills, and she has a gun to his face. And instead of peeing himself, which is what I would do if somebody put a gun to my face, he gets very excited sexually. And this is so gross. He is so amazing. And I remember not liking him the first time I saw this. And I remember
Hmm.
being kind of sad the very first second that I saw that Sean Penn won Best Supporting Actor. But after re-seeing the scene, I'm like, nope, nope, he deserves it. Yeah, because he is so disgusting. He's this I don't know, he's entering into that weird Christmas Christian sect. I don't even know what it's called, but
Hmm.
they're thinking that he's could be a really heavy member for them, but there's this big vetting process. But inside of all of that, so he has to be a white supremacist, he has to be a complete bigot, all of those things he has to do. But he's also really attracted to this Teyana Taylor character, but Perfidia Beverly Hills,
Hmm.
and it's super gross because she ends up having a baby with this Bob Ferguson guy, or Pat, sorry, he's not called Bob until later. But they have a baby, and she wants to continue fighting in the revolution, and he's like, hey honey, we have a kid now, we need to we need to slow the roll. And she gets back into it and gets herself into trouble. And then of course Captain Lockjaw shows up and trades her freedom for a bunch of names, and she gives into it. And that whole piece happens like it happens very quickly, but it sets the stage for what needs to happen in the rest of the show, because the rest of the movie is like 17 years later. So this child has now grown up, thinking that her mother's dead, thinking that her father is a total loser because he's literally sitting on the couch getting high and drinking all the time. I don't know how she made it through elementary school, but but apparently, but that's kind of where we're at. And Captain Lockjaw is still around, and he thinks that child is his child. And so, in order to get into this Christian right wing sect, he has to get rid of any evidence that he fathered a child with a person of color. And that's kind of where for me, I got to breathe and be like, all right, I know what's happening. Where are we? What are we doing? Okay, I'm in. But you're 45 minutes in, but it doesn't feel like it. You were right. I mean, it's a long film, but at no point was I like, all right, I'm ready. When are we going to tie this up? Let's wrap it
When
up,
are when are we gonna go? Yeah, absolutely. Sean Penn is great in this, as you mentioned. He's very gross, disgusting, kind of individual, but he plays it so well. Rewatching it, like the only thing I could think of when I'm watching Stephen Lockjaw on screen was Robert Patrick's Terminator T-1000 in there because they have a similar like kind of physique. They have a similar way they carry themselves, and Stephen Lockjaw, kind of similar to the Terminator here, is obsessed with this like never-ending like pursuit of the players here of the French 75, and then obviously on to Chase Infinity, who's playing Willie Ferguson, right, as a someone that he thinks could potentially be his own daughter if he wants to make it into, it's I think at the Christmas Adventurers Club, I think is what
Oh,
it's
that's what it's
called
called. Sorry.
there. So yeah, so I mean it's very very wild from that standpoint. And the opening sequence of that is great, and it's throwing so many like themes at you, especially from like the viewpoint of Perfidia Beverly Hills, because and on one hand it's talking obviously about kind of kind of this like political like dissent group. So it's got like that going. It's got like like addictive like characteristics of like adrenaline and adrenaline seeking. Like it's got that. It's got like over like sexualization and fetishization and using your sexuality like as a weapon against people. Like it's got that going. It's got like her post having this baby, like postpartum like themes
Hmm.
for her. So I mean it's like this whole like gamut of stuff that's running through for Perfidia Beverly Hills, which is really kind of amazing because you watch the movie and you know Perfidia Beverly Hills, played by Teyana Taylor, is like basically like the main character of like this opening sort of like act. And then doesn't
Yeah.
like fade away into the movie, right? But she goes into witness protection, so like the movie is turned over from her, like largely at that point, right? And it's turned over then to Bob and to the daughter Willa Ferguson, and kind of their stories and how they're being pursued and pursuing Stephen Lockjaw. We get to meet Benicio del Toro's character, Sergio St. Carlos, who's amazing. Benicio del Toro can do no wrong. There's never been anything in his whole life that he's not been good at. I guarantee it.
I concur. And I just got to say, um, both of these underground sects, right, of humans, it's real weird because when Bob gets wind that that they're coming for him 17 years later and they're coming for his daughter, he like calls a hotline. And this is when I think it's really interesting how they updated this because as you say, the book was written in 1990 and they didn't have cell phones back then. So he's like
Mhm.
calling I don't know, there seems to be one payphone that's in the city that he lives in, and he finds it. He remembers the number after 17 years. I can't remember what I ate for breakfast this morning, but he remembers a number, and then he has to remember these code words, and he gets about 4 steps in when he can't remember what he's supposed to say. And this guy is like the worst telephone marketer like ever. He is so insufferable, and he's like, you need the password. And he's like, do you know who I am? They're going to come and kill me and kill my daughter. I'm a member of this movement. Like he's trying to give him all this information to prove who he is. It's kind of like when I want to cancel my Netflix, they just won't let me do it unless I know the inside of every part of my body. It's crazy. So I love that scene, and interspersed with him trying to figure this out with tech support, Benicio del Toro is in the middle of having, I don't know, an ice raid is happening in this city because it's a sanctuary city, and he is the coolest cucumber. He's like in a room. He's a sensei in like a karate dojo. He gets a phone call and he's really calm, and they're like, "We have no time," and he's like, "It's fine." And so he starts to get ready and he closes down his dojo, and then he goes into this it looks like an apartment complex. Every room he can walk into, though, and every room has a family. And he's like,
Mhm.
okay, it's time to go. And he's super calm. And everybody is like, I loved that scene. And that
Mhm.
part of the production design I thought was really, really cool because it looks like one continuous movement. And I don't know how they coordinated. I mean, they're like 200 people in a hallway that have to like figure out what they're supposed to be doing, and it like the rooms that had to be built to look the way that they do. I don't know. I loved that scene, and I'd forgotten how cool that scene was until I rewatched it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see because the exterior shots, it makes it look like this kind of like apartment complex or whatever is like built in like kind of like behind and above, I don't know, like a Chinese restaurant or kind of thing. Or if that was so if like the actual like interior of the apartment was done on like a soundstage, or if those were like actual like apartments that they found and were able to shoot in there, that would be kind of interesting to see. But yeah, I love that part so much. And so obviously he does that. He gets to help those families out of there, and he also gets like Bob out of town, right, to give Bob a little bit of breathing room so he can go and find Willa Ferguson, who has now been captured by Stephen Lockjaw. A bad look, right there. And they're trying to suss out, right? Stephen Lockjaw is trying to get into this white supremacist group, so he needs to figure out if she's his actual daughter, which is really good. The film does a great job, I think, of kind of hiding the outcome of whose daughter she is, through the bulk of the film. I think it does a really good job there. We don't need to spoil that if you're interested in going to watch. So that's pretty cool. And then obviously you have Bob kind of in pursuit of them as they're going to try to figure out where she is and how Perfidia like comes back into the fray of the story as we go.
Yeah, I mean, the end is really, again, it's just an adrenaline rush. You feel like really thrust into this very chaotic world. You have a moment of clarity, and then it's back in it, right? It literally is one battle after another where you're like, okay, I'm alive, Bob's alive, everyone's okay. And then it's like, nope, they're kidnapped, he's arrested, he's tased, and Benicio del Toro comes through, but, but then he has to like, he throws Bob Ferguson out of a car. I love it. I love it. I don't
Yeah,
know
but
if
Bob
Leonardo
has a rough go. He
DiCaprio and
gets
Benicio
thrown
del
out of the
Toro are
car. He
friends,
like
but
falls off that building.
and he just ends up being okay. It's real weird. But I don't know. I really liked the end part because they lead up to kind of Willa's um, abilities, right? So they talk about her like in the dojo. You see pictures of her, so she's done really well. And even though at the beginning you think Bob now, getting high and drunk on a couch and kind of melting into the world, you think that he's kind of a loser, but he has been really planning for his daughter to be okay this whole time. And it really
Hmm.
comes, to fruition at the end because one of the Christian Christmas people, one of the Christmas adventurers is like a hitman who's supposed to go and like kill everybody because they need to be able to wipe this whole thing clean. It looks very dirty for them and they want all of these people dead. And so he's there and there's a car scene with guns and then there's a fighting scene. It's all the adrenaline that you could get. There's no explosion. Well, there's a little bit of an explosion, but I just thought it was so neat the way that it was actiony, but it also like really helped you see the layers of the characterization that we had been really that we're really surprised by
Hmm.
um, this whole time. Because Willa kind of turns into a badass, right? And you had no way of knowing at the beginning she's a girl who's going to a dance and you know lying to her dad about having a cell phone. you know.
Right, yeah, she turns in, yeah, from just, every other, teenage girl to really following in the footsteps of her mother and Bob there, in that sense. So I love that. I love you get Lockjaw there. I mentioned, kind of this Terminator figure, and there's a couple of instances in the film where you think that he's been taken out, like he gets like shot in the face, like his car explodes, but eventually, the only people that can really put down Colonel Lockjaw are his own people, right? As he's fallen through, and you mentioned they had to kind of wipe up the crack or fill in the cracks or make sure that none of this gets out. If you're the secret Christmas society or whatever they're called, you got to keep these things under wraps, I guess. For some, maybe you did in 1990. I don't know if you still do, but so that was good. Coming out of the movie, that was one of the aspects that I didn't really appreciate as much, but I think after watching it
Mm.
again, I really kind of liked that notion of like dogged pursuit from this character whose kind of motivations change throughout the movie. So I think you could say in a lot of ways that Lockjaw has like the most like character development, not growth because he's still a terrible, gross person, like from beginning to end, but his motivations for this pursuit change through over the course of the film, right? So he's, at first he's trying to chase down the French 75, and then he's trying to chase down Perfidia, then he's trying to chase down Willa, and then eventually he's trying to chase down like the remnants of this wake of a mess that he has left along over the 20 years or however long it's been at this point.
Yeah, I really loved that. at the end, and even at the beginning, that relationship too between father and daughter was really, I mean, you don't have a lot of time because there's so many other things that you have to tell in the story. So there's only a couple of scenes where Leonardo DiCaprio and Chase Infinity are together in the same space, right? Because they get
Mhm.
separated and they only come together again at the end. Spoiler warning. But he's really trying, and she's like, gosh, he's so my dad, but she loves him, And even at the end, when they have this moment where she has, been indoctrinated and drilled in, and all of these things that he said she needed to know, she really did need to know. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a daddy's girl. I just really loved the end part of that. And then after all of this is done, you know, someone earlier, one of the nuns, because she goes to a nunnery because they have, I don't know, the terrorist organization has nuns in it. It's great. But they basically tell Willow that she doesn't look like her mom on the outside, but she does on the inside.
Mhm.
And at the very end, they go, her dad takes her to a protest that's happening near San Francisco, and um, it's really cool because she still has that fire in her, that is inherited from her mom's desperate want to make an impact in the world for something that she believes in, and she believes in it so much that she was willing to give up her child to go continue that life, which is as a mom, that's a layered thing, right? Yeah, but I really loved those two, kind of the pieces of them together, and how you saw at the beginning and through all of this, how I don't know, how she grew up, and her connection to her dad and even her mom. And I don't want to spoil that piece of it, but that part's really cool too.
Yeah, that part is really cool. The other thing that is cool here is that this film won the first ever casting Academy Awards. So I thought we should make mention of that here. We talked a little bit about it kind of in the Oscar pre-show and then the award show. But obviously, look at this cast and it's very star-studded, right? You have Leonardo DiCaprio, you got Benicio del Toro, you got Sean Penn, you've got Regina Hall in this. So the cast itself is very acclaimed and all that stuff. But there's so many like moving pieces and so many other characters that have to, kind of fill in this role and like how exactly they're going about playing these parts. Because, on one hand, you watch the trailer and you're like, this is going to be like a Leonardo DiCaprio, like kind of like I don't know, like caper, like semi-comedic kind of a thing, because that's,
Mm,
kind of what it presented itself as. But it gets all these layers, and it does so because of all the other players here, Teyana Taylor, who's an actress who's, well accomplished in her own career, but coming in and just taking over, like I said, kind of like the first hour of this movie to, the other students at the school, Willow's school, who are coming in and being interrogated by Sean Penn, which is probably a scary thing to do if you're a young actor, to be quite honest. That's got to be a little bit of
hmm
harrowing kind of a thing, but really it's all of these players that, you know, I don't want to say like main cast, but you know what I mean. Kind of our lead characters here are interacting, through this journey of a film that really kind of props it up. And I think that on one hand, yeah, putting together like an all-star cast is an impressive kind of thing because they do still have to have, chemistry and the ability to work together and play off of each other. That is still something that is very challenging to pull off, but to put in the pieces that, allow those characters to, fully develop and to enhance what they're doing in the film. Is again because watching the trailer going into this movie, like I said, like I assumed it was going to be some crime caper thing with Leonardo DiCaprio, not cracking wise, but being a buffoon because that's kind of what it was presented as. But that's really a very minor sort of layer of this film.
Yeah, for sure. The casting is incredible. I go back to that scene where Bob Ferguson is on the phone and he's like, "All right, I've had enough. I need to speak to your supervisor." I mean, and he acts like he has a code word, and I don't know how he got to that. He should have just started with that. When the guy started to give him shtick and be like, "That's not the password, sir," he should have been like, Gray Cliff monologue, whatever the password was to be like, "I want your supervisor." The supervisor recognizes Bob, and this is where the casting I think is amazing because you only see the telemarketer, that guy, the guy on the phone, the tech support guy. You only see him for about a minute, and he's
Mhm.
perfect. And then his supervisor, you see for maybe 3 minutes because you see him at the beginning of the film for a hot second, and then you see him in this, and the exchange is perfect. He's like, this is a hero. What have you done? Apologize and fix it, and just hands it back. And I'm like, this is why it won Best Casting because it wasn't just big names, as you said, right? All these little, like smaller parts that made this entire story just an epic kind of adventure that was both funny and scary and harrowing and like an anthem and even a coming of age sort of because um, Willa has to figure out who she is in the midst of having these parents, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I was super excited that it won that. I don't know. I'm really glad I rewatched it because I remember seeing it and thinking this is gonna do well. Um, but I think I needed a refresher on all the things that made it so special.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you look at the cast here, just the cast list on the like IMDb page or the Wikipedia page, and like you forget like in hindsight of it, but that opening, sort of section, obviously we're carrying along with the Perfidia Beverly Hills. We're with Pat Calhoun, Leonardo DiCaprio's character is a little bit hard to keep track of here in podcast form because he keeps changing names throughout the thing. But you're focusing on them, but you're doing all this other stuff with the French 75, and each one of those has their own little like pocket of a sub story that's existing, right? And main characters like in those little like missions and things that are being carried out, and that go south and all that stuff too. So I mean, it's really just a swath of you know not only like different actors, but different like kinds of actors and different like acting environments that they're being asked to portray in this because it covers such a wide gamut of stuff. So I don't know. Was there any other things about One Battle After Another that you wanted to make mention of here? Our Best Picture winner for 2025,
Um, let's
2026?
see here.
I don't know how the years work.
No, yeah. It's worth your time. I mean, and it did well. I think it was a big budget film. It was like 150 million. And it did pretty well in the box office. It was not, I wouldn't say it was a blockbuster. It didn't make $1 billion because it was a very expensive film to make. And now we see why. Um, no, I think you always say it better than me, but I liked it. I think it's definitely worth your time. And I think that it's going to be one of the best pictures that kind of stands the test of time
Hmm.
as well. I mean, I say that I could be completely wrong, but especially in terms of casting, this is a really great example of putting together like the perfect people to create this entire underbelly of Earth that I never knew existed, especially
Yeah.
since it also has tech support.
It also has to export. Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look back on it, I mean, even if, I don't want to say that the movie doesn't hold up because movies are, a product of the place and the time that they're in. But, even if people aren't, in 40 years going back to rewatch one battle after another. I think they're still going to look at it for the casting, as you mentioned, for things like the editing, as you mentioned, for the way that the scoring was handled. I think was also really impressive here in this one too. So that is one battle after another. So I want to thank everyone who has joined us here for this 3 week long coverage of the Oscars, all thing Oscars. It's a lot longer of a coverage because we talk about it on lobby bars for basically the whole year coming into it. So thank you for joining us for this year of Oscars. We'll be back next week with Oscars for next year, probably coming back. And
Probably.
want to give a special shout to Fanny's, a place that is near and dear to us. And thank you so much for creating incredible cocktails that we can try our best to recreate here at home. And hopefully we get back out to see you guys very soon, very soon. It's one of the highlights of Drink the Movies, and I think probably just our own personal journeys in terms of movies and just really fun, awesome things that we've gotten to do in our lives. So I want to give a special shout out to them. Check them out, Fanny's LA. If you're ever in LA, go there because A, their food's amazing, the museum is amazing, and those cocktails also amazing. So check that out and check out One Battle After Another Best Picture winner. Let us know down in the comments or on our social medias what you thought should have won, what you thought about One Battle After Another, what you thought about the Oscars, what you think about Micheladas in general. You can do that on our social medias. That's at Drink the Movies on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Facebook.com/Drink the Movies. If you want to see pictures of the cocktail we made, written recipes, episode recaps, links to all of our things, that can be found on our website, which is drinkthemovies.com. Go there. It's got links to all those things, as I just mentioned, and it's got links to our Patreon, patreon.com/Drink the Movies. That's where you go and get bonus content, hangouts, chats, cocktail chats, Maybe we'll talk about The Bride on there. Who knows? We could do anything on there over on Patreon, and we do it all with our amazing patrons. Thank you so much to all of them. We appreciate your support. Michaela, next week we are stepping away from Oscars and talking about movies that might win Oscars next year. There's good chance, probably at least nominated
Yeah.
for a couple of those. So where can people like and subscribe?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, anywhere where Spotify podcasts are supported and distributed. If you're holding a rectangle right now or following us on YouTube, there's a button. It's called subscribe. Press it. We would love you to. We'd love to see you twice a week. We do a deep dives like the one you just heard, or we do our lobby bar where we talk about all things box office and even put in a cocktail that anyone, even you, can make. For those of you that like video games, those of you that like to hear Brian's voice, go on over to Drink the Video Games and learn a lot about video games that you never knew and you always wanted to know. It's amazing. It's really good. And the latest episode is maybe my favorite. So go check it out. Drink the Video Games as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that plug. I definitely appreciate that. And thank you so much to all of you for listening along here as we talked about one battle after another. Thank you so much. And we'll be back next week to chat about another movie on
Drink
Drink the
the
Movies.
movies.
Insert Nicole Kidman and Ewan McGregor here.
Oh, yeah.